This is Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast where we bring Jesus into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
Hey guys, welcome to Sports Spectrum. I am Jason Romano. We're so happy that you joined us here today on the show. You can reach me directly via my email, jason@sportspectrum.com, jason@sportspectrum.com. I'd love to hear from you. Any guest ideas you might have, any thoughts on today's show with Kent Chevalier, or just want to drop a line and say hello, you can do that by emailing me directly, jason@sportspectrum.com. We are presented today and thankful for our partners and sponsors, IJM, the International Justice Mission, believing every person deserves to be safe and free from violence. You can partner with IJM by going to their website, ijm.org/TF, become a freedom partner, and join the fight to end slavery in our lifetime. We're also presented by Compassion International. They are the most trusted child development ministry in the world, and right now they are doing an amazing work teaming up with pro athletes to help release children from poverty. I'll tell you more in a little bit about what they are doing, and it's amazing work. But right now, you can go check out their website, compassion.com/teamup, compassion.com/teamup to learn more and help release a child from poverty. Really pumped for today's guest, Kent Chevalier. He is the Pittsburgh Steelers team chaplain. He's working with Athletes in Action and crew to help do chaplain work with his wife, Erica, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, here's the awesome story about Kent. He just became the team chaplain in 2019, so just last year. 22 years as a pastor in the Pittsburgh area, so he's been pastoring for a long time, grew up in the Pittsburgh area, grew up a Steelers fan, and now in his early 40s living out his dream, well, maybe not even dreaming that big, I guess, to be able to pour into and chaplain the Pittsburgh Steelers players, coaches, and front office. It's pretty cool what Kent gets to do. He's got an amazing job. He's the dad to 3 daughters, married to Erica for 20 plus years, and now pouring into Pittsburgh Steelers players, coaches. You're going to love this story of Kent Chevalier and his conversation with myself right now on Sports Spectrum. Kent, welcome to Sports Spectrum, buddy.
Jason, thanks for having me on, man. Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, it's so good to have you on. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and you have such a unique role. We've talked to a lot of team chaplains here, but you have such a unique role, those team chaplains, I think, when they work with an NFL franchise. You're with the Pittsburgh Steelers through Athletes in Action and crew ministry, but you also grew up in Pittsburgh. So you were a Steelers fan for a long time, not just for now, right?
That's right, man. Some of my earliest memories, man, are watching some of the, late 70s, early 80s teams with my dad. So yeah, huge Steelers fan my entire life, lived in Pittsburgh, the majority of my life. And so this is, pinch me, man. This is crazy that I get to do this. So,
I love it. Well, give me your favorite Steelers moment from when you were a kid. Like watching it, or even as you got into your teens, 20s, whatever it was, but your favorite moment that you can remember as a Steelers fan before you got this role.
Yeah, so I would say, I was a youth pastor for 10 years, and 4 of those years were in Detroit. So when the Steelers came to Detroit for Super Bowl, I believe it's 43.
Yeah.
And
40, Super Bowl 40 in Detroit.
Super Bowl 40, okay. And we're there in Detroit. They transformed the city for the Steelers, to come. And Jerome Bettis, that incredible storyline of him basically coming home. What an incredible moment. They win, the confetti, falls, and after that he retires. And it was just an incredible, obviously I'm in Detroit serving as a youth pastor there, and my team is coming to the city that I'm in. So that was probably for me the most favorite. We went downtown and we did all the festivities around the Super Bowl, and I got on ESPN by jumping up and down in the background, stuff like that. So just huge. It was so fun to share it with my wife, and her dad drove up from Pittsburgh to stay with us during that whole festivities. It was an incredible, fun moment for us.
I remember that Super Bowl for a couple of reasons. A lot of my colleagues colleagues went and covered it, and it was freezing, and they weren't happy
Yes.
that they were going to Detroit and not to Phoenix or Miami or California or something. But I also remember it very well because of the bus, Jerome Bettis, who ended up coming to work at ESPN. So I got to work with him on a variety of occasions, got to wear that Super Bowl ring that he won in Detroit. And it's a pretty nice ring. But I got to tell you, the bus is one of the great guys that you will meet. And so I can just add that on to your story and let people know, man, Jerome is the real deal. And that was a great moment. And it's funny, 3 years later, I covered that Super Bowl that was in Tampa when they beat Arizona. And, you know, Ben throws a touchdown to Santonio, and that's probably the craziest ending to a football game I've ever seen.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's still on highlight reels for everything. So incredible moment.
Well, if so when Ben goes, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I had the opportunity to meet Jerome this last year at the Steelers practice facility, and what you're saying about him, he's a great man. You know, he really is.
He is. And I was going to say, too, with Ben, when he goes into the Hall of Fame, the first top 2 highlights will be that touchdown he threw to Santonio. It's got to be, because it's one of the great throws and catches you'll ever see.
Yeah, and the other one will be the tackle against the Indianapolis Colts. You know, what an incredible moment, because if he doesn't make that tackle, the season's over.
Peyton Manning still shakes his head when he thinks about that. Like, we had it.
That's right.
So it is funny. Ken Chevalier is our guest here on Sports Spectrum. So you said that you were a youth pastor. You've been a pastor for a while. Take us through that journey to becoming a pastor and what led, maybe, you know, when you first made that decision or saw God leading you into ministry and pastoring.
Yeah, dude. So that goes back to when I graduated high school, 17 years old. There was a lot that was going wrong in my life. And God met me in a very low spot. And I look back now and I see this, but at the time, I was just really mad that things weren't going my way. I didn't get into the college that I wanted to go play baseball. And I had to, I say it that way, I had to go to the local college, Geneva College, which, man, I'm so thankful for it. My mom worked there. She was a lunch lady at Geneva College for the last 35 years of her life, man.
Wow.
And so I had to go there, but I was mad because I grew up on the college, man. That was like my stomping grounds. When I come to Geneva College, I'm starting to grow in my faith, hunger for the word. I meet a guy by the name of Rich Grassel who discipled me all 4 years of college, and he gave me a shot in ministry. So he was a local youth pastor while he was the student ministry professor at Geneva. And he said, hey, man, he basically put it like this: we're starting a band, and would you want to play? And I was like, sweet, okay, let's do this. I didn't realize it was for a church, didn't have a category, because the church that I grew up in was very small. We had essentially a small group, and we called it our youth group. But Rich, he grew, God allowed him to grow this ministry into, and I was playing guitar and leading worship for 50 to 55 students. And I was like, this is crazy. This is bigger than my church. And so he let me have my first shot in leading a small group of 6th grade guys. He let me have my first shot of giving my first ever talk at a youth ministry. And so Rich, when he discipled me, he gave me opportunities. He eventually asked if I would take over that student ministry as a sophomore in college. And so I'm going to school for ministry at this point, and I'm leading a youth ministry at the same time. And that's how I sort of started getting into ministry. Started full-time, 10 years then as a youth pastor. And then God put it in us from Detroit to come back to Pittsburgh to plant a church. And I always kind of say it this way: it failed wonderfully. It was the hardest year of our lives, but it was the best year of our lives. And
why is that? Why is that, Ken?
Because, as a guy, you step out and you want to succeed in everything, and you have this idea. And I knew that God was asking us to do this. I mean, things that it was just clear. And then when things before 9 months, the church folded. When things started to go wrong, and man, we were just, there was so much pain in that it puts a stress on a marriage. It puts a stress on, young family. At that time, we had 2 young daughters. And it was just so hard. And I think the first time in my life, my faith was tested in a way that I had never knew that it needed to be. And God stretched me in a way, because essentially we were raising all the funds to, be church planters, and, we're raising for the church budget and all this stuff. I mean, here's a good example of why it was so hard. 3 weeks in to the church plant, we were a portable church meeting in a movie theater. And week 3 of our public launch, we got into a wreck, and all of our equipment in the trailer was totaled. Oh. And so it was just like, oh man. And so things like that were just so hard to endure. And we basically became the statistic that 3 out of 4 church plants don't make it. Right. But that moment for us turned out to be the best year, because I then landed at a great church in Pittsburgh where, a guy who has mentored me even back in my youth ministry days by the name of Scott Stevens. He asked me to come on board at Northway Christian Community, their Wexford campus. And he gave me so many different opportunities, and it ended up, for the last 13 years, that's where I served. Nice. A great church. And that's where my life in probably year 11 of that changed when I met Vance McDonald. He began to attend our church. He's the tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's where the journey of becoming the chaplain began. So,
well, tell that story, because that was where I was going to go next. Was how does a guy who's a Steelers fan and a pastor and failing wonderfully, as you said, church planning, end up in chaplaincy with the team that you rooted for as a kid? Tell us the story.
Yeah. So, dude, I mean, I could tell that God was doing something in me. I loved my church, still am a part of that church. We're now seen as, missionaries of our church. But when I was the Wexford campus pastor there, Vance and Kendi and their family came. He was traded from the 49ers, and he immediately is trying to look for a church. And it just so happened that our church building was right where they chose to live. And so Vance and Kendi, and I always stood up there at the end of the service and said something along the lines of, if I've never had the opportunity to meet you, I'm going to be right out in the lobby, kind of thing. And I instantly recognized Vance. You can't miss that chiseled chin, and so obviously I knew, because I'm a fan, I see that San Francisco had traded him to the Steelers. And so I recognized him immediately, and he came up to me and he says, "Hey man, I want to introduce myself." And we grabbed a cup of coffee later that week. And we began a relationship, friendship. And later after that season was done, Vance asked, he said, "Man, I'm really looking for a mentor, a discipler in my life." And that's sort of my thing. I've always been a discipleship guy, and I've always preached that from the front, in my church. And so Vance approached me about, discipling him, starting a discipleship journey with him and a few of his buddies. And that's in that conversation over that discipleship journey is where Vance would, every once in a while he would say, "I wish that we could do this at the Steelers." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, right now the Steelers don't have a chaplain. And I wish that we could do something like this, what we're doing, Bible study and studying the character and the ways and the mission of Jesus. I wish we could do that at the Steelers." And I'm like, I didn't know that is a thing, And so he started asking me, and I went home to my wife, and I'm like, I'm starting to get lit up, because man, is this the thing that God's doing inside of me? I just knew he was up to something. Vance eventually, like long story short here, we got to a point where I got up enough courage and I said, are you like dropping hints that maybe I could be the guy? And he, essentially something like, I'm glad you asked finally. And he set up a lunch with Coach Tomlin. And, I was like, oh my gosh, like either way, if this doesn't work out, man, I get to have lunch with Coach Tomlin, the most powerful man in Pittsburgh, man. This is good. This is crazy. So he sits down, we just get to know each other. And then he invites me to come and basically hang out at practice over OTAs and minicamp stuff. And then he invited me, later on to speak at their chapel that they had at minicamp. And dude, I was
this is all last year, right?
All last year. Yeah. So I was so nervous at chapel. I spoke on Jesus. I don't know really what else I said. But at that point, like I didn't hear anything. And I was like, crap, I didn't make it. You know what I mean? Like I thought I blew it. Weeks go by. I didn't hear anything. Now I know, well, that's when everybody goes out of town. It's that time. So, obviously it's not on his brain, but, at that moment, man, when he called me back, it was a life changer for me. And it was a huge step of faith for Erica and me, because, think about it. I've got 3 daughters, 18, 16, and 12. And to step away from a consistent salary at my church, to now step into Athletes in Action, which, I raised my salary again. It's back in those church planning days when we did that. And we were scared to do that because of what happened with the church plant going down. Yeah. And so, but when Coach Tomlin said, hey, I want to introduce you to Athletes in Action, I knew what he meant right away, that I was going to have to raise everything. And I'm going, God, this can't be what you have in mind. Because I got weddings. Like, I'm like, in the future, I got college right around the corner. I got weddings. This is nuts. But God made it abundantly clear to Erica and me, and together, now we've joined Athletes in Action, and we are trusting God, and he is showing himself faithful so much, man. It's been incredible to be on this journey. He's stretching our faith in ways that we didn't even know that we needed to be stretched. He's bringing us alive in our faith in ways that we didn't know that our faith was dead. And so we personally have enjoyed this journey of the last, what is it now? Just simply 14, 15 months since this all started. So we're loving it.
Tell me about 2 things you said there that were interesting. The conversations you're having with your wife. I've lived those conversations as well, stepping into this role that I'm in now from ESPN. And I had a salary that was being offered to me, but it was a 40% pay cut. There was no benefits. It was leaving such a big place like ESPN. So those conversations with my wife were very real. And we had to go at it a little bit to see where God was calling us. So walk us through the conversations. And then you said that it's a we thing. So you're doing ministry together, and your wife, I presume, is ministering to the players' wives and girlfriends. So tell us about the conversations and then the ministry itself and what you guys are doing together.
Yeah. So those conversations, we had been here and done that before. I always say this about Erica. If she didn't meet me, I believe that Erica would be a missionary somewhere in, Central America. She has a passion for the Spanish language and reaching just that beautiful people group there. And so she's always been extremely supportive of ministry moves and decisions, but this one was very different, after being burnt with the church plant and it going down. And it was we realize that we are trusting in a salary rather than trusting in the Lord's provision. And, it was essentially where we had to get to a point where we said to each other, it's about time that we practice what we've been preaching for the last 25 years. to trust in the Lord with all our heart, lean not on our own understanding, and acknowledge him. He'll make your path straight. It doesn't make any sense in my understanding to leave a full-time salary, benefits for my family, but we could not deny. And I'll just tell you this quick story. As we were on our back patio, we had committed about this decision to fast and to pray, and on our little back patio, we have this fun little 3-bedroom ranch with an incredible backyard. And on that backyard, we back up to complete woods on 3 sides. And so often the birds are just going nuts. And we noticed one day that the fern was moving and we're like a little freaked out, but we look inside and here, mama and, daddy bird, they had built a nest and there's eggs inside the nest. And a couple days go by and those birds, the eggs hatch, and mama and daddy bird are bringing them food. You hear the babies chirping and mom swoops in, and we're watching this whole thing go down. And she's feeding the baby birds, and dad's perched up on the fence and he's looking down to make sure that we're not messing with them. And it became obvious to us as this happened day in and day out, as we're fasting and we're praying for this decision to join Athletes in Action, that God was being so clear of like, why do you worry? Don't you see the birds of the air, right? I feed them, and how much more valuable are you than these birds that you see right beside you? And we were just like blown away by the absolute visual on our back patio. And so we were at the first, we go out to Crew to meet and start this journey. And we were just afraid to do all of this, but we were doing it afraid. It's been a message I feel like God has given to me during this whole journey, is to do it afraid. Whatever it is that God's calling you to do, the absence of fear, courage doesn't mean that you're not going to have fear. You just do it in the face of fear.
Yeah.
And so we go out to kind of sign on the dotted line with Crew to begin this journey with Athletes in Action. And Erica and I have it was just a rough night of fear creeping in on us. We had a really robust dialogue about, are you sure that this is what we're supposed to do? We're in, but we're afraid. And Erica sort of, she's a runner. She clears her head by going for runs. And she would tell you this story, but we were out in Fort Collins and, we're not from there. So she sort of went for a run in the middle of Colorado State University. And she'll tell you, she broke down along the side of the road, and it was rough. Like, she was weeping, saying to God, like, I need something to just remind me that this is what you're calling us to do. We've got those, markers, but I need something. And she composed herself and she never told me that she broke down weeping, but we go to this session with Crew. Imagine 8,000 people, Colorado State University in the gymnasium, and man, we're all worshiping. And across the way, it was a round stage. Across the way, we noticed that there was a painter painting, but we were on the opposite side, so we could see the back of the canvas. And during worship, everybody's singing, and on the other side, the camera eventually pans back once he's done. And what do you think he painted, man? Baby birds in a nest it was like this crazy moment. She and I look at each other, we begin weeping, and we're like, game on.
Wow.
We know we're supposed to do this. And that's the story that we hold on to of God calling us into this. So come hell or high water, man, we know that we're supposed to do this, and we're in. So that she now partners with me. So, the way that we say it is, I'm the chaplain to all the guys of the organization, and she's the chaplain to all the ladies of the organization, coaches' wives, players' wives and girlfriends. There's a fun opportunity that she just started by doing a Bible study with all of the scouting department wives. So it's an incredible ministry, man. And we feel privileged, especially both of us growing up in Pittsburgh,
Right.
being huge Steelers fans. Oh my gosh, dude, we get to influence and come alongside the influencers of the Pittsburgh region. So feel blessed.
Today's program is brought to you by IJM, the International Justice Mission. And right now, violence is a threat to so many people around the world, especially during COVID-19. And so many of these people are poor. It's as much a part of their daily life as hunger, disease, or homelessness, and it's often overlooked, but not by IJM. They believe that every person deserves to be safe and free from violence, and they partner with local authorities to rescue victims of violence, bringing criminals to justice, restoring survivors, and strengthening justice systems. IJM is helping to protect over 150 million people from violence around the world. And it's such important work, but they cannot do it by themselves. They need your help. They need our help. And so I'm reaching out to you to consider joining them and becoming a freedom partner. Some of IJM's most loyal partners in the work of justice, and your support of $24 or more each month help survivors of slavery and violence from the moment they're rescued until they are fully restored. And I know when you hear this, sometimes we think, slavery, is that really still a problem in this world? Well, how about 40 million slaves around the world, and many still here in the United States? It's running rampant right now. And that's why IJM is doing this important work. And that's why it's important for us to partner and believe with them and pray with them for the work that they're doing, ending slavery in our lifetime. Visit ijm.org/TF to become a freedom partner today. We're also presented today by Compassion International, the most trusted child development ministry, releasing children from poverty in Jesus' name. And of course, COVID-19 and the pandemic has left thousands of children without a sponsor, 70,000 to be exact, which is the capacity of an average NFL stadium. So here's a chance for you to join pro athletes and Compassion teaming up to respond to this challenge of 70,000 children without a sponsor. With your help, we're hoping to fill the stadium with urgent support for a stadium's worth of children in crisis. Check out the website, compassion.com/teamup to learn more, compassion.com/teamup, and donate, helping these children through the critical next 12 months. Compassion.com/teamup. Talking to Kent Chevalier from the Pittsburgh Steelers, their team chaplain with Athletes in Action and Crew. I've heard you talk about these, what I guess you would describe them as Nicodemus moments in a few of the interviews and places that we've had conversations with the players. So you're calling them Nicodemus moments with the players. Can you share more about what that is and maybe a story or two from having chatted with a player and what those moments are like?
Yeah. And so, I mean, the most famous passage in all of the Bible, John 3:16, is shared to Nicodemus, right? In that moment, being born again, but this incredible, okay, Nicodemus comes at night to Jesus. He doesn't want to be seen by anybody else, but he comes and has a conversation off to the side with Jesus. And so essentially what I found out last season is that some guys don't want to be seen talking with me in front of anybody on the team.
Sure.
And I get it. I totally understand it. But there's a couple times where last year we're at the team hotel and things are kind of dying down for the night. Team meetings are done. And all of a sudden my phone begins to light up with texts. Hey, PK, that's what they call it, PK, Pastor Kent. Can you come down by the pool? I'd love to talk. And so this player and me we're sitting down by the pool, and it's sort of in the dark, and we are having one of the most in-depth conversations about this guy's going through an extremely rough time, and I need some guidance. I need some help. The same kind of things like, man, all of a sudden it's 11:30, midnight, and my phone starts to light up and I'm having conversations with these guys via text. um, about faith, about God's guidance, about Christianity. These moments where, here I am, I'm in the middle of Heinz Field right now. I've got this little nook that they've given to me.
Yeah.
And you see this curtain, that's here. And guys would ask me to pull the curtain so that they don't see me talking with them.
Sure.
So that's what I mean by these Nicodemus moments, but they are the most powerful moments of one-on-one ministry where I get to just share the hope of the gospel with them, how I'm here for them, anything that they need. And they, from that moment, they're testing me, right, to see if they can trust me.
Yeah.
And so I see them lean in then, that, okay, he's a guy that I can trust, and I'm going to keep coming, at night or via text or whatever. And so that's what I mean by those Nicodemus moments, man. And they are some of my favorite opportunities to just, have the ministry of availability with these guys. I'm available to you at all times. Let me know.
And a lot of times I'm assuming they're not looking for answers from you. They're just looking for somebody to listen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to listen about something that has nothing to do with football.
Correct. Right.
I was like, guys, I've been a pastor for the last 23 years. I know nothing about your performance. I'm not here in any way about football. I mean, I love NFL football, but these guys are like, I think that they're beginning to understand like my role as to why I'm here. And oftentimes, it has nothing to do with football at all, but everything with just being there for them.
Yeah. As we wind down, I saw a powerful moment on the field a few weeks back before the season started in training camp where Coach Tomlin shared a message. The entire team came to the middle of the field for prayer. I'm just wondering, when you're in that moment, how cool is that to see an entire team kneeling? And you know that there's people from different perspectives, different backgrounds, different races, creeds, whatever, that are just coming together and kneeling in prayer. That, I think you shared the picture on your social media page.
Yeah.
That was a powerful picture. Just how cool was that to see that kind of unity coming together as a team?
Yeah, incredible moment. And here's the thing that I love most about it. So Vance McDonald, since he's been here, has been very open about his faith, right? And he doesn't, he's not a Bible thumper, but he's just a consistent faith guy.
Yeah.
And so the social justice committee that met to plan that moment of how Coach Tomlin would address and all of this, it was a player who stood up and said, Vance needs to be the one to lead this prayer. And I just think that was a huge moment. I was so proud of Vance because what he prayed was just absolutely beautiful, man. And it's not public, but it was an incredible moment of unity, of how God is absolutely all-inclusive, that he celebrates and he creates diversity.
Yeah.
Right? And it was just this, I loved it. It was a powerful moment to be hand in hand, taking a knee together. And it wasn't just players and coaches. This was the entire organization that came together to take a knee at midfield, right in Heinz Field. And I thought that was one of the most unique statements. And this is what my pastor shared with me, is that, the Steelers in that moment showed the entire NFL that prayer should be central to what it is that we are doing.
Yes. In
the efforts of social justice. And so that was probably the most powerful thing for me, that prayer was a part of that statement. And that just comes from the top, man. And so I know that was a powerful moment. Hopefully, I don't know how much headlines that got, but man, it was a powerful moment here at Heinz Field.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see. Even just following you on Twitter and seeing that picture, I was like, wow, that is an amazing display of unity in a time where we feel like we're divided, and seeing a team come together like that and unified was awesome. Let me close with this question. It's a question we ask all of our guests, Kent. Curious what your answer might be. 2020 has just been a crazy year altogether, not just for sports, but for everything that you just described and more. We're all going through a lot. You're fathering three daughters right now. My brother has 4 daughters and I have 1. So I know what it's like to be a girl dad. But what is God showing and teaching you right now in all of this? What's he been teaching you? You're doing a lot of teaching to others, but what's the Lord showing you right now?
I think that it's probably that passage, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. See, I believe that when we recognize, and this is what I think God's teaching me because of even just some of the personal stuff that we got going on, when you have God on your side, there's always hope.
Yeah.
Like no matter circumstantially what is swirling around us, when we keep our eyes fixed on Christ, the author and perfecter of our faith, even when it seems like things are sinking, right? It's Peter taking that step and all of a sudden he takes his eyes off of Jesus for 1 second and he begins to drown, right? And that picture that when I put my eyes even back on Christ, he's going to lift me back up. And so I think that's what, God is maybe showing us, like, man, are we taking our eyes off of who should be central to all of our lives? We become to trust in so much. But I think God has been showing me and therefore teaching out of that, that our eyes need to be fixed, especially during the craziness of 2020, the sin of racism, the economics, the election, we have to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. And he will prove himself faithful like he always does. And so I would say that that's one thing that he's teaching me. When God's on my side, man, there's always hope.
He is Kent Chevalier, the Pittsburgh Steelers team chaplain with Athletes in Action and with Crew. Thank you, sir. This is awesome. So good we met a few months back right before the pandemic hit, but it's been great to connect through social media and now to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Jason, thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Great stuff there from Kent Chevalier, the Pittsburgh Steelers team chaplain with Athletes in Action and Crew. And he's got a great story. He's got a great heart for the Lord, and I love all that he stands for. And just love how he is ministering and influencing the influencers, as he said. I got to meet Kent a little bit at a conference last February, and just watching him on social media, love his heart for people, and grateful to have him on the show today. 2 things I want you to do. Number 1, go to Twitter, give Kent a follow, Chevalier, Chevalier, and let him know that you heard his story here on Sports Spectrum. Then I want you to go to this website, teamchevalier.com. That's Kent and Erica's website that they have. Remember, they are funding themselves. They are basically a ministry that is funded by the donations of others. In the same way that Sports Spectrum and Pro Athletes Outreach is too. So Kent, he didn't want to say this or do this, but I'm going to do it. And I told him after we were done recording that I was going to do this. If you feel led to support Kent in the ministry as a Pittsburgh Steelers chaplain, you can do that. One-time donation or a monthly partnership, whatever that looks like. But you can learn all about how to partner with Kent Chevalier and his wife Erica with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the work that they're doing, preaching the gospel in the NFL. You can go to teamchevalier.com to donate. Teamchevalier.com. Many thanks to Kent for joining us here today. Also, thanks to our partners and sponsors, Compassion International, releasing children from poverty. You can check out the website, compassion.com/teamup. And then, of course, IJM, the International Justice Mission, doing great work fighting to end slavery, violence, and oppression in our lifetime. Check out the website, ijm.org/TF, and become a Freedom Partner today. Thanks again for tuning in to today's show. Want to direct you one more place, and that is our website, sportspectrum.com. That has all of our content here at the Ministry of Sports Spectrum. Check it out every day. You want to bookmark that site. We got articles, we got devotionals, and every single podcast available right there at sportspectrum.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on Sports Spectrum. Love you guys. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.